when we look at our customers, one of the top risks that they have is regret spend. We've all been there to some extent. Buy now and worry later. But and you know that the size of the increased size of the spend, the bigger the regret. And this is what we see as one of the biggest risks that customers face at the moment. If you see customers making these kind of instant snap decisions, you know that they're going to feel that across the organization. One of the reasons for this is that if you look at the overall spend for a contact center, there's usually about 3 to 5% on the technology within our contact center overall spend, and something like 60+% is on the agent salary. So if you make a 3 to 5% decision that is the wrong decision and has other implications and stalls or makes the contact center stutter, makes your experience for your customer stutter, that's going to have a disproportionate effect onto the effect versus the spend. And these types of regret spends can be the technology and partner choice, integration dead ends and incompatibility, inflexible subscription models, subscription models that really aren't subscription at all. If you look at some of the models that are out there, what people are pushing out as cloud is not really cloud at all, but it's some kind of hosted on-prem solution that's been cut up in a mishmash way that doesn't really offer the full benefits of true cloud. So yeah, why does that happen? There's a lack of market and technology appreciation. So things are moving quickly. It's not easy to keep up with all what's happening in the market, why things are the way they are, what the impact of the decision is going to be, and that can be on a commercial or technology basis. So if you look at AI, for example, there's a lot of noise about AI. Everybody's talking about AI, and Gartner is saying that by 2021, that 15% of all customer service interactions are going to be handled and completely by AI, which is something like a 400% from 2017. That's very easy to look at that and say, that is something I need to do, and you'd be absolutely right. But if you take the wrong decision now, you'll be moving yourself into a cul-de-sac of spend. So the massive advantages for cloud in general for IT are drivers for the entire organization to be on some sort of migration journey. And one of the issues with that is that the same advantages for cloud adoption are quoted across departments and business function, which is understandable. However, unless you're very au fait with contact center specific issues and business specific issues and customer specific issues, how customers want to interact, what that means for technology delivery, service delivery, it can be easily lost into generalities of the overall advantages for cloud. And that's why we've seen a number of customers become what we call cloud refugees. Contact centers who've started on the journey and realize actually this isn't going how they would expect. And they've started now, but what do they do next? And they're stuck, they're lost. They don't have the right tools, partner, or direction to move out of where they are. They're completely lost. And they end up with what could well be stranded assets that you've invested in good faith, thought that you were going to move in the right direction, however, aren't going to realize the benefits that you first thought. You can't use them in the way that you imagined, and you're going to end up having to move to new technologies. Some of the assumptions that we've seen, or some of the reasons that we've seen customers moving as cloud or becoming cloud refugees. Cloud is not, there's an assumption that cloud technology will be very similar to on-prem, and it isn't. And there are some fundamental differences in the way that it works about functionality and integration, and you need to make sure that the decisions that you think you're making are actually the real decisions. So if you have an integration decision to make, that you can actually execute on that in a way that you would expect in cloud as you were on-prem. Also, with some of the services out there, there's an assumption that one cloud provider is very much like another. They are not. We'll come on to that a bit later in terms of the quality differentiator. And if we go back to the quote from Gartner, where they were saying that customer service is a hotbed for new technology and innovation, the warning I was talking about is that in today's ever-evolving technology landscape, innovations threaten to overwhelm even the most progressive service leaders, and shiny new objects quickly lose their luster without a coherent technology strategy, one that is grounded in realistic expectations and a long-term commitment. That, I think, goes to the heart of what's required. It's a trusted guide and a trusted partner to take people through that journey, to make sure that you don't end up with those stranded assets and those regret spends. And the scale of the issue, at some level, I think most customers we speak to are making decisions based on the assumptions of quality, flexibility, cost and commitments or capability of the platforms they're looking at, based on what was known in the past. This is the main danger, the main trap that we see customers falling into. And again, going back to the operational costs, it can be the impact is disproportionate. 3 to 6% is going to be on technology, and then something like 70% plus will be on staff and operating costs. So the impact of a poor choice can be massively disproportionate. Of course, there are solutions to that, and that's where we can help. If you look at what's required, you need to understand through assessments and workshops, and having a detailed understanding of exactly what the customers want now and in the future, and providing a strong roadmap and guidance to get there. These are things that are natural for us because this is something we've been doing for a number of years. But if you haven't, and it can be very easy to fall into these pitfalls. And we can provide a transition that's very smooth, slick, and painless, and actually surprisingly smooth. But the plan has to be in place to allow you to be surprised and your customers. So for anyone, and hopefully this is all of you, who heard our webinar conversation with Erwin Paul Boomer from Cisco, you'll have heard us talking about hybrid. It's been clear from that discussion and many other discussions we've had with customers that the journey can be incremental as well as one big jump. And sometimes it's preferable for it to be that way. There's every possibility for the scenarios to be in between cloud and on-prem, but you do have to understand the impacts of that. You have to understand what the implications are, and again, have a strong roadmap for getting to that place, because there will be underpinning commercials and technology decisions that you have to make in the longer and in the short, medium, and long term. And actually, hybrid can be a solution that is an empowering solution for customers. One of the things that we've seen within the UK market is that there has been an overall risk aversion. It's quite a conservative market. When you look to the US, for example, they've been much faster in cloud adoption, and this is all pre-COVID, but the US market was moving much quicker to cloud. But the UK market and European market actually has been much more conservative and risk averse. There are a number of reasons for that. If you look at the US market, they tend to be much more monolithic in terms of channels. So they have large voice only contact centers, whereas the contact centers in the UK tend to have proportionally more channels per user. And that's just a simple question of scale. So there's been a risk aversion, which won't go away. It's going to be overcome somewhat by COVID, but it's still going to be there. And this gives a hybrid will provide a customer a way to take that into account and still provide a path to cloud, and take advantage of the benefits that cloud will bring. There might be some technology reasons, investment, commercial, wanting to sweat an asset that, for example, if you've got a database or CRM system that's been built in-house, which, believe it or not, still happens today. And there's an on-prem integration into that. And there needs to be a way to move that out to the cloud at the customer's pace, because the investment in that is going to be proportionally significantly higher than the contact center, for example. So there is no way that the contact center is going to lead a customer to cloud. They will have to move there at the slowest moving pace of all the links in the chain. And that would, in that example, would be something like on-prem CRM. And also contract commitments. Let's not forget customers have got commitments to existing systems, and these won't go away overnight, however much we might want them to. So what can we do to make that happen? Again, it's having that strong customer appreciation, understanding all of the aspects of a customer, not just about the speeds and feeds of the contact center, the queues, the teams, the structure, the call flows. It's having the business awareness, the commercial awareness, to provide them with a commercial and technical model to take them through hybrid into the cloud. And also it needs a solid capability for both cloud and on-prem. Taking one or the other, which is where most people tend to stand, there are very few people who will have a foot in both camps, is very important. So actually understanding all the pitfalls that can go with on-prem as well as in the cloud is the only way that you're going to provide a robust roadmap, one that you can rely on in getting over to the cloud and providing hybrid on the way. The other point is that actually there has to be a certain amount of commercial flexibility. So one thing that's very different is that the commercial model for working on-prem has typically been very large, single payment, and not around subscription models. So you need to have that commercial flexibility to provide that path from a on-prem model, which is typically on a 3-year cycle, to subscription based, which is typically on a monthly cycle. This is quite a big change, and that commercial flexibility is very important. Having the appreciation of what it's going to mean to you as a partner and what it means to the customer, and how that will operate is going to be as important as any of the technical decisions that you'll be making along the way. One of the things we've learned over a collective decades of experience of this is that you cannot leave out the details, the less glamorous elements that are built into business structure and requirements. The foundation to which, and this is across the contact center from an operational basis through to the customer handling and customer experience. And these things need to be handled with confidence by a safe pair of hands. These are not things that you can suddenly develop overnight and are earned with sweat and tears. They are not something that is going to be readily added on to any capability. And some of the things that you need to think about along the way, again, billing and commercial fit is going to be one of the big things. We're seeing a number of customers that require different commercial models within the cloud environment. They're not used to necessarily working in a subscription model, and having that commercial fit that works for them is critical to securing them and their future within the cloud. As long as you can provide that path to that subscription model in a way that works for them, and in these increasingly, in these difficult times of COVID, that's even more important. People are looking around to what's this going to mean to me, and that subscription model can provide them a way to deal with something like COVID with more confidence that it's not going to impact their cash flow on a long-term basis. Data sovereignty and data protection is never going to go away. It's a huge issue. It's only going to increase. And you need to have the skills and expertise and be able to handle these, make sure that all the right tick boxes are crossed off, and that everybody is aware of where data is residing, under what jurisdictions it's residing, And this is increasingly important for customers that work across jurisdictions and geographies, that they need to know that their data is being handled in the appropriate way and to the appropriate security levels. And one of the other things that is usually an afterthought, well, we've seen that it's been dealt with in other scenarios, is user adoption. User adoption is absolutely key. And again, considering COVID, when you've got a remote workforce that are out there that are distributed and not under the same level of stewardship from the management, that you can't see them day to day, that you can't just go and sit next to them, help them out. Having powerful and well thought out user adoption tools is absolutely key. It's going to be one of the things that will make or break the success of a project in terms of how the end users are consuming the technology and taking that to the next level, so that they can confidently move from one set of tools to another. It's not a new thing, but the problem becomes exacerbated by COVID, by remote working, because you're effectively working with your agents, your supervisors, through a computer. You don't have that tactile interaction that you could help guide a user. You have to know that the tools that you're using will allow that user adoption to be successful. So one of the things that is a challenge for partners and customers alike, it's a lack of specialist knowledge across, because some of the technologies, when you look at it, it can be around core ACD management, it could be across email management, it could be in workforce management or quality management. But there's a degree of specialist knowledge that goes into each one of these that we can help you bring to the table. So for workforce management, there is a language all of its own about scheduling and adherence and user management that, unless you're familiar with, is not easy to get under the skin of. And the language is very common between on-prem and cloud, but you need to understand it. Otherwise, you're going to end up in difficulties in moving customers over to these new tools. There are a number of different technologies we have to consider on the way. There are going to be other systems we have to integrate with, and this has always been the case. So if we look at things like Salesforce or Dynamics CRM, there are always going to be integration questions with third-party products. And these are only going to increase as the number of cloud-based tools, and most tools outside of contact center. If you look at CRM or any line of business applications, they are finance, enterprise resource management, those type of tools, which are, every customer has them of any size to some degree. And most people now are taking on cloud tools. How do you integrate into them? How do you provide that seamless integration and experience and make sure that the customer is providing a seamless experience in terms of their customers? These are not new issues, but they are complicated issues, and they only become more complicated across moving from on-prem to cloud. And of course, quality of service. So this means many things to many different people. Usually it will fall under one or two camps. If you've got your hardened voice engineers, your hardened contact center engineers, this will clearly be about the quality of a voice conversation. However, this goes across every interaction. So whilst we can absolutely differentiate and help you differentiate, because we can provide quality of service on the voice where many of our competitors cannot, we can also provide this across multiple different channels, whether it be digital channels or email, and provide the service wrap to go along with that to make sure that the overall experience is also of a high quality. So when we're dealing with people on the implementation and deployment phase, that they get a high level of service, and also ongoing service, which is probably the more important one. So they want to know that on an ongoing basis that you're going to get that quality level all the way through, that you're going to be able to speak to somebody who understands your problem and will be able to resolve it in a timely and acceptable manner. And that's one of the key differentiators that you can, when you're working with a larger provider, perhaps, that you can't guarantee that same level of quality that we can bring to the table. So, yeah, there's a lot of different things in there. Why you need to be thinking about what the journey is going to look like, how you're going to take them there, how you'll take a customer to the cloud, what you're going to provide them in terms of a roadmap. But hopefully I've given you a flavour of what we can do and how we can take you there, and take you there with confidence and open up new opportunities for you in the future. Thank you very much.